A man wronged in 1947. Portland, Maine was a quiet city, but scandal had a way of echoing louder than peace ever could. The town buzzed with shock when Andy Dufresne, a well-known and respected banker, was arrested for the brutal murder of his wife and her lover. Andy was no ordinary man. With a calm demeanor and an analytical mind, he had built a successful career in banking by his early 30s. But behind his quiet eyes lay a storm. He had discovered his wife's affair with a local golf pro, and within days they were both dead. The evidence was damning. Andy had purchased a revolver, had no alibi, and was seen drunk near the scene of the crime. The prosecution painted him as a cold-blooded killer who snapped. Andy's calmness during the trial, meant to show composure, was instead perceived as callousness. The jury deliberated less than 2 hours before finding him guilty on 2 counts of murder. Andy received 2 life sentences to be served consecutively at Shawshank State Penitentiary, a name that would come to define the arc of his fate. Shawshank's Gates. The massive gray walls of Shawshank loomed like a fortress as Andy arrived in chains. The prison, built in the early 1900s, was dark, cold, and unforgiving. Inside were men who had committed every crime imaginable. Violence was currency. Weakness was a liability. Andy, with his clean suit, educated speech, and quiet manner, stood out immediately, and not in a good way. Prisoners like him were often chewed up and spat out. His first months were marked by fear and silence. Within weeks, he caught the attention of a group known as the Sisters, led by a predatory inmate named Boggs Diamond. They took a special interest in Andy, tormenting and assaulting him repeatedly. Though Andy fought back in every way he could, he remained outnumbered and vulnerable. Still, there was something in him that wouldn't break. Each time he was knocked down, he stood back up, quieter perhaps, but not defeated. Red, the man who could get things. Ellis Redding, known simply as Red, had been in Shawshank for over 20 years. He was a man who could get you things: cigarettes, posters, even a rock hammer if you had enough patience. Andy approached Red one day in the yard asking for just that, a rock hammer. Red, intrigued, warned him, "You plan to tunnel out of here?" Andy smiled faintly and said, "No, I'm just a rock hound. I like to shape things." That was the beginning of a quiet, profound friendship. Red had seen many men enter Shawshank full of hope and slowly lose their minds. But Andy was different. He kept his mind occupied, read books, and chipped away at small rocks in his cell every night. Red once said, he had this quiet way of walking and talking, like the world hadn't gotten to him yet. Prison politics and numbers. One hot summer, the prison warden assigned the inmates to retar the roof of the license plate factory. Red, through a favor, managed to get Andy on the crew. As they worked under the blistering sun, a chance comment from one of the guards changed Andy's fate. Captain Hadley complained about inheriting money and how the taxes would eat most of it. Andy, overhearing, offered advice, complex financial advice that would legally shelter Hadley's windfall. At first, the guards were suspicious, but when Andy explained further, they saw his value. That day marked a turning point. Andy was no longer just another prisoner. He became the guy who did taxes for the guards. Soon, he was doing all kinds of financial services, including for Warden Samuel Norton himself. The warden, a pious man with a dark soul, used Andy's expertise to launder money through various state programs under the guise of prison reform. In exchange, Andy was given privileges, an office in the library, letters for book donations, and time to educate other inmates. But all privileges came at a cost. The price of usefulness. As Andy built a massive prison library and helped fellow inmates earn their high school diplomas, his life appeared better. But beneath the surface, he was still trapped, used, exploited. The warden depended on him too much. Andy became a key part of an illegal money laundering scheme. When he once casually asked about a retrial, hoping to prove his innocence with new evidence, Warden Norton warned him coldly, "That's it, Andy. You're it for me. If you try to leave Shawshank, you'll lose everything." Andy had learned of an inmate, Tommy Williams, who claimed to have shared a cell with a man who boasted of murdering a golf pro and his mistress, and framing her banker husband. Andy was hopeful. But when he told the warden instead of help, Tommy was transferred to another prison under suspicious circumstances. Andy realized the system had no interest in justice. Shawshank had become his cage and his coffin. Hope is a dangerous thing. After Tommy's transfer, Andy changed. He became quieter, distant. Some feared he might do something drastic. One day, Andy asked Red for a length of rope. Red panicked, thinking Andy might hang himself, but Andy only smiled faintly and said, "That's not it." That night, he locked himself in his cell as usual. The next morning, he was gone, vanished. The guards tore through his cell and found nothing until they noticed the poster of Raquel Welch on the wall. When they tore it down, behind it was a narrow tunnel, chiseled through the stone wall. Andy Dufresne had spent 19 years digging a tunnel with a rock hammer, patiently, secretly, relentlessly. Every night he chipped away, and every morning he dispersed the dust in the yard through his pant cuffs. And during a stormy night, with lightning crashing and rain pouring, he escaped through the tunnel and into the prison sewage pipe, crawling through 500 yards of foul-smelling waste to freedom. Redemption and reckoning. When the warden realized Andy had escaped, panic set in. But that wasn't all. Andy had been preparing. Before escaping, he stole all the evidence of the warden's money laundering operation. He walked into a bank, clean, in a suit, and withdrew the laundered funds using the alias he had set up over the years. Then he mailed the entire folder of proof to the Portland press and the state authorities. Within weeks, the story broke. Warden Norton faced criminal charges. Rather than be arrested, he took his own life. Captain Hadley was arrested, and Shawshank's administration was overhauled. Red described it best. Andy got out, he got clean, and he got even. Zihuatanejo, the promise of freedom. Back in Shawshank, Red felt Andy's absence like a hollow in the wall. But one day he received a letter hidden beneath a tree in a hayfield Andy had once told him about. Inside was money, and a note. If you've come this far, maybe you're willing to come a little further. Remember the name? Zihuatanejo. It was a coastal town in Mexico where Andy dreamed of living, free, warm, and far from cold gray walls. Years later, after Red was finally paroled, he went to that field, found the letter, and followed the trail. And on a bright morning on a beach where the sky met the sea, Red saw Andy once more, free, smiling, and at peace. He had waited. Red had come. Epilogue, the legacy of hope. Shawshank was never the same after Andy. His escape became legend, whispered in halls and feared by wardens. But more than his escape, it was his spirit that left the strongest mark. He taught those around him that even in the darkest places, hope was still possible. That freedom was a mindset. That resilience was more powerful than chains. Andy Dufresne, a banker, a prisoner, a legend, had fallen. But in falling, he rose. He crawled through hell and came out clean. And somewhere on a beach kissed by the Pacific tide, he rebuilt his life, not as a convict, but as a free man.